Hello and welcome to Video Revealed. I'm Colin Smith. I've got two cameras set up. I've got two laptops set up because today we're going to look at Adobe Productions. Okay, so we're going to look at Productions. It's a great new way to work in Adobe Premiere Pro. And here's the best part. All you need is your regular Creative Cloud license. You do not need a team license. This does collaboration, not over the cloud like team licenses. This does collaboration over a network attached storage. So shared storage with a group of people, but solo editors can also just use it on a local disk. So what is a production? A production is a folder with a bunch of projects in it. It's really all it is, and all the magic just takes place with everybody's copy of Premiere Pro running and opening the same production. I'm going to start by opening or creating a new production on a machine locally, and then I've got a shared project on my NAS that I'm going to open on these two machines and show you how it works. The first thing I want to do, though, before we get started is set up the preferences the right way. I'm also going to have a link in the description to a PDF that Adobe makes for people that are starting to work on productions with all of this detailed information in it. So let's set up the preferences in each version of Premiere Pro the right way, and then we'll get started. So in the Edit menu, Preferences, Media, we're going to uncheck the following. Write XMP ID files on import. Turn that off. Write clip markers to XMP. Turn that off. And enable clip and XMP metadata linking. Enable, so that one is on. In collaboration, we're going to make sure that project locking is checked. So project locking is checked, and you get to add your name here of whoever it is, because we're going to be able to see who has these projects open at the same time we're trying to work on them. So I've got my name and I've got another name on the other laptop. So once those are set, we'll click OK. All right. This is the regular splash screen that comes up. And if I happen to open Scene 3 is on one of the productions that I've been working on my server. And if I open that up, it would open the production. So you only ever have to open one of the projects. But I'm going to start from scratch. And I also want to show you that I've got a folder here that I called local, and there's nothing in it. I'm using a little application called That File. It emulates the column browser in on the Mac, just so you can see what the folder is and its contents at the same time. I'm also going to import this project once we get started. So there's my local folder with nothing in it. So you have to create a production. You can't create it here. You have to create it in the File menu and New Production. It's already showing me the other one I have created, which is on my server, but I'm going to create a new one, and I'll just call it New Production for today. And where it is, I'll click and I'll navigate to that folder. And there's my local folder. I'm not selecting a production, I'm selecting a location. And as soon as I choose Select Folder, Premiere Pro will make the required folders for me. So watch this. I'll click Select that, and I'll click Create, and you'll see a new production folder. It's also created the Premiere Pro previews, audio previews. So everything that the production needs is in that folder. Do not put media in that folder. It will just cause a problem. Premiere Pro is actually updating that productions folder all the time. So when we add a new or change a project, that folder will be updated. It's also important that any file management you do for folders and projects, because that's all we're talking about here. We're not talking about media. Projects and folders, that you do that in Premiere Pro. Although it will update, you do not want to duplicate projects from the Finder or Explorer. Do that all in Premiere Pro. So here we are back in Premiere Pro, and we're in a workspace called Production. And it opens up this new folder here. If I'm in editing, you won't see it typically. Let me reset my editing. You won't see it in editing. So you have to be in the production workflow. Okay, so here we have my untitled project, and it opens up down here. That's the project panel, and that's my sequence. I can name this Cuts. And if we go back, you'll notice that it's also renamed Cuts. So again, it's going to mirror both of those. I'll create a folder here and call this Day 1. Click OK. It creates it outside of this hierarchy. I can drag cuts into there. And again, when we go to our folder, you can see Day 1 and cuts are in there. So pretty simple. All of that is being organized. And you'll also notice that this little green pencil is here. That means that this is open in a read and write format for me because I'm editing it. Anybody else that opens this or looks at it in the project bin on the shared folder will see a lock, and we'll show you that in a minute. Now, if I close the only project here, I'll save my changes. It's going to close things up just to the production. So if I double click on that again, it opens up that full workflow. So you got to get used to that. If you have no projects open, then it will close everything up. So Adobe likes to think that this format, the projects are replacing bins. And that does make sense only if they're projects. But bins also contain media. So it's a little bit confusing, for me anyway, because the media is not part of this. Now, I will add media to this, and you do that same as before in the media browser. So those files are now in Cuts. So I've just imported that media, and you could do this for things like sound effects libraries or music. You create a project and you import in a bunch of media. You could put it in a sequence if you want, or you could just leave it in a bin or in the project panel. I could put a bin in the project panel. It's however you want to work it. And this is the really big feature for working with productions is they open quickly, because if you're working in a feature film, long form documentaries where you have hundreds, maybe thousands of clips that you're working with, when Premiere Pro loads it, it actually has to take inventory of every single thing it says opening, and can take quite a while to open a big project. A production, on the other hand, will not do that. I could have thousands of assets connected to the production. It will not open them unless I open those specific projects. Very, very nice. The other thing you'll notice is that in sharing productions, you're not going to get those duplicate files that you try to consolidate later. That was one of the main things that Adobe wanted to fix, and they did in Productions. You're not going to have those duplicate clips, because let me show you what happens when we do copy a clip from Cuts to Cuts 02, and I'll show you. Okay, so I'm going to make a new project, and you can do that down here. Just click on the new item. You can also go to the little flyout menu here and create a new project, folder, a new project. We can add a project, which we will in a second. So I'll create a new project, and I'll call this Cuts 02. And you can see there's Cuts and there's Cut 02. I don't have a timeline open up yet. So I'm going to create a sequence in Cuts 02. I'm just going to do a quick HD, but I'm going to go back to Cuts, and I'll select Media, and I'll drop it in. Now I've got this media here. I'm going to go back to Cuts and close it. and you'll notice something interesting. So here's my sequence. There's my clips. The media is not in here. These are called cross-project links or references. So this sequence knows the media is actually in a completely different project that is closed right now, but it knows where it is. If you want to find something, you can do exactly what you did before. Right-click, reveal in project. It's going to open cuts and show that to me. So you have these giant libraries of sound effects, of music and things. You can load them. You can have them in your production. They're not going to take up all that memory when you work with them. Very, very nice. If we go back to the Finder, we can see there I am in day one. There's cuts two, there's cuts projects. All of that stuff is being taken care of. So now let's import a previous project into this production. So back to our flyout menu, add project to production. So I'll go back out to here. That's my regular project, and I'll click open. And it's telling me a new copy of the project will be added to it. So the original project is not moved or changed in any way. Its full contents are copied and imported into this production. Copy. And we get a progress window that comes up that tells us when things are complete. And there it is. You'll notice that it has this outline. Whenever you have a project closed, it has this outline to it. If I double click on this, I will open that one too. And there's my rough cut. And now I've got my project together in here. So if I wanted to make a change, I could make a copy of this. Want to make a different version of this. I'll call this version 3. Open that one up. Open that up. And now I've got a separate file. So I've imported it, I've copied it. Now I can make any number of changes I want. I can also close all of these projects, close all projects at the same time, and it's going to warn me if any are open and need saves. You'll also, if you've got changes in multiple projects, you'll get a prompt to save all projects at the same time. So you don't have to go yes, 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 yes on each one of those. Okay. Again, let's go back and look at our production. You can see there's the 2 world travel sequences that were brought, projects that were also brought in. So everything is together in one. Okay, let's close this production up. I'm going to just click on this little box. And now I've got nothing open. Now I'm going to open a different production, and I get this drop-down menu, and that's the one that's on my NAS. So I'll open that. And now that I've opened this one, you can see on the second computer here, Cuts has a red padlock on it. Let me open up another one on the second machine and watch what happens here. You see, not only do I notice that it's got a red padlock, but I can see who has that open. You'll also notice that it has an outline, meaning that the project isn't open here, but it is open somewhere else and it's locked. What I can do is I can still double click on this and open it, and I can open this and I can play this back. And you notice that I've got a lock right here. And again, it says that scene 3 is opened by Rod Janes. So everything is protected. In fact, this one is kind of interesting. Watch this. I'll select a bunch of clips and I'll try to make a change. It looks like I'm going to edit this, but they'll actually jump back in place. This is protected. So the benefit to this is Rod knows that I can't mess with his edit while he's editing it, but I can open this up And I can even set an in and out point if I wanted, and I could export that in and out point. I could copy those clips and put them somewhere else. I could even go back to the production and I can make a copy of this while he's working on it. And now I can continue working on scene 4, double click, and you'll notice this will have a green pencil. And if we go back over to the other machine, you'll notice that my name is beside that. So scene 4 is now opened by me. Scene 3 is opened by Rod Janes, and we're both working side by side. So next up, I'm gonna have, let me just clear this in and out here. And I'll close my scene 4. And I want to show you what happens when Rod actually makes a change, and then I get to see the change. So I'll go back over to this machine here. And I'm going to open up cuts, because that's where I've got my media that I want to work with. And I'm just going to grab a bunch of these clips and drag them onto V2. So now scene 3 has a different update. There's a bunch of these extra clips on top, and the timeline looks different. And it's locked. So I'm going to right click and close that project, save that. And back here, I'll get a notification. Now, by the way, if Rod had saved while he still had that open, I would get this warning, this little caution symbol that tells me I'm not looking at the most current version of the sequence. So if I go to the little flyout, if I select that sequence and go to the flyout menu and choose Refresh Project, it's going to close this for a second. And now when I open it, you can see those are the extra clips there that were added. And you'll also notice something interesting. So you'll see another icon. It's a filled in icon without a green pencil. A little bit confusing. So my first thought was, I opened this as read only. I expected that once Rod saved and closed it, mine would change to read and write. It doesn't. It stays as read only. So if I wanted to now make changes to this, because you can see it's still locked, now I can right click and read write mode. The lock goes away and the green pencil shows up. So now I'm able to edit this. And as I mentioned before, you can have a project just with a bunch of music in it, another project with a bunch of sound effects in it. And you can open these. I want to show you that to keep this safe, instead of double clicking on it, if you control double click on Windows, command double click, you'll open these as read only. So you're not going to accidentally change these and delete something by accident, which you don't want to have happen. The other thing that is happening is if we go to this production, I can right click in here and reveal this production in Explorer or on the Finder. And you can see that there's my stuff going on in that production. And you'll also see a bunch of autosaves. Oh, yeah. Now, this is saving a bunch of different things, but you'll see my name on some of these that are saving. So each autosave that is saving is actually saving with the person's name on it. Now, the location of this is very important. If we go to File, Production Settings, General, you'll notice that we get many of the exact same things you'd see in a project setting. What's the renderer? Well, my renderer over here is CUDA. what if someone else is using metal on a Mac over there? No problem. Productions are smart enough to know that there are different rendering engines between the two. The scratch disks are all the same as production. You can see they're staying there. This is exactly where you want this, because if you do happen to render anything, you want other people to get the value of those renders. So here's where audio previews, video previews would be saved, the auto-save projects, libraries, the motion graphics template media. All of that is saved on that shared server, so people aren't going to lose this. Remember, none of this is media related. On that same server, I copied a bunch of media files that are sitting on the server. So when I add them from that server. You'll also notice ingest settings are turned off. Ingesting is exactly the same as regular projects. It doesn't happen in the production setting. So someone is going to be the person importing all the media. So they would open up a new project. As I showed you in the sound effects and music, you open up a new project, go to the media browser, you import it, or you ingest it. And if this also works the same with proxies. So productions are no different. Everything you know about a project works in a production. Does it work with proxies? Yes. 4K, 6K? Yes, 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 yes. None of that has changed. As long as you make sure you share everything in that file or on that shared storage, everyone would be able to access that media. Okay. Now, there are some other important things like master clip effects. If you have a clip and in the effects, you've added a master clip effect that would show up inside here. So master clip effects, first of all, you have to have that project in a read and write state to be able to add or change a master clip effect. They will ripple throughout the project. So you make a master clip change in the media file, it's going to change everywhere. So you got to remember that. Clip names, multicams, and master clip effects ripple. So clip names, if someone changes the clip name, it's going to change in every location that is there. Sequences do not ripple update. I showed you that I copied scene 3 to scene 4. I actually duplicated. There is no way to have two projects sharing the same sequence. You have to copy and paste a brand new sequence, or duplicate you could duplicate the project with the sequence. But bottom line is, sequences don't ripple. Label colors are special in that they're independent in the timeline. They will not update throughout. Markers do. Markers go both ways. So if I've added local markers in this sequence, and then someone else changes them, if they have that project open and that sequence open as read and write, they make changes, I'll see those changes there. And the media cache files, oh yeah, this is another important one. Media cache files stay on the local machine. So let's go look at that. This is our regular project setting. So in the edit menu on Windows, on the Premiere Pro menu on the Mac, preferences, media cache, you do not change these to the server. All of that should stay on each local machine because it's only referencing what's happening on the project. Do not put those on the server. Very important. And another tip that Adobe likes people to know is that this works with obviously shared storage servers, not just a hard drive. That can't just be a hard drive plugged into Ethernet. I have a network attached storage, NAS, over there. And I have a Synology, which is meant just for personal sharing. It's not really recommended for this kind of thing. I'll put a link in the description. QNAP is one that Adobe recommends. The time on the server has to be accurate with the time on the machines. Very, very critical. There are ways that local machines can also share the same time update location, so they're all the same. And the last thing that Adobe recommends is, although Dropbox, Google Drive, Sync, all these things do have shared capabilities, they're not meant for this kind of work. It's also important to have fast speed. When I was connected on this main machine, and I'm connected through gigabit Ethernet, when I plugged into my desk over there, I was getting speeds of 300 megabits per second, which is the equivalent of USB 3. So this machine through gigabit would be okay, but that's one person. As soon as you start adding multiple people and they're hitting the same server and they're hitting the same media, the faster the disk, the faster the server, the faster the Ethernet connection. You're not going to do this over Wi-Fi. You want this wired gigabit or 10 gig E fast connections in groups of people. If you've already got a shared storage between multiple people, then you know this already. On my local machine here, that doesn't matter. I'm just working locally with Productions, but in a shared group, it's really important. So this is a really big step. This took some major work at Adobe to figure out how to get this to work seamlessly. Like I said, you don't need a special account. You just create a new production and everybody opens and shares the same production. Adobe has no guidelines on how to treat this. You can mess things up, or if you pay attention, you can do this all the right way and make sure that the stuff you want that's protected is protected, but everybody still has the freedom to create anything they want inside a production. Whew. So there you go. There's the new Adobe Productions. Hey, if you're new to Video Revealed and you found this informative, take a moment and subscribe. You want to support us some more? You can do that through PayPal. There's a link in the description of this video and on the front of the channel. You can also visit us at VideoRevealed.com. Till next time, I'm Colin Smith, and it's my job to make all these notes and go through all this stuff to make sure that you're well informed, not just about a new feature, but all the little ins and outs that you need to know.